So one of the members in our community was asking about the variety or the difference between paddle smashes. And I know that this is something that when players are starting, they need to try and understand. And also, when you reach quite a good level, you still might not know when to use which of them and why you're using the different paddle smashes. So in this video, we're going to cover what are all of the different paddle smashes, when you would use them, and more importantly, why you would use each of them. So before we dive into all the different types of overhead in paddle, it's important to understand that the difference in paddle to other racket sports is that you have defensive overheads as well as attacking overheads. There'll be times when the lob goes up and you can't be aggressive, or you shouldn't tactically be aggressive. So to begin with, we're going to separate these into defensive overheads and attacking overheads. So let's start with our defensive overheads or smashes. We are also going to go through these overheads in the process or the progressions that we would teach it to a student. So if you're a coach, you'll have an idea of how we would teach this to students, but if you're a player and you're wanting to learn these, you'll know the order in which to learn them. So the first defensive overhead that you would learn and the first paddle smash that you would teach to a student would be the Bandeja. Now, this is a defensive overhead that is played from a little bit further back in the court to regain your net position. So you need to play this slow enough that it gives you time to recover the net, but also into a position on the court where your opponents can't attack you straight off that next ball. Part of the reason that we teach this as the first overhead is because from your volley, your forehand volley, the action is very similar for your Bandeja. So you'll take this racket back, the elbow goes up nice and high, you come down with the racket, and it looks a lot like the forehand volley, and therefore it's quite a nice progression from the volleys to go straight to that. So the idea of the Bandeja is technically it's a short, simple block that is pushing the ball into the other side of the court. It doesn't need to be amazing. You're not trying to hit a winner. Remember, this is a defensive overhead, so it's a short block coming down the ball. Ideally, as I said, that arm needs to be up so that you're not coming with a low elbow up to the ball, because that will make it bouncy at the other end. You want to come down the ball with a little bit of slice that will help it stay low at the other end, and you play this defensively. So the times you would use this is if there's a really high lob and you can't be aggressive on it, so it needs to be a little bit safer, or you'll push further back in the court because, like I said, the purpose is to regain that net position. The next smash we would teach would be an aggressive smash, an attacking smash, and that would just be your standard flat smash. Now, this is something that at higher levels, you would use it less and less, and you would use other of the smashes, but when you're starting out, you need to understand a way to finish points. So we would go through the technique. When the ball is easy and the lob is short, you can be aggressive and hit flat with that smash. And a lot of the technique revolves around finding that continental grip and learning to pronate so that you can actually hit that ball flat on the racket face. And usually the objective here is to play the ball fast into the ground, straight off the back glass to come forward towards the net, and you would aim this towards the player that is closest to that back glass, or if you've previously set that ball up in a corner. Now, this can be a risky smash if, for example, your players are a little bit further up the court and you bounce the ball down and it comes high off that back glass, because they could attack you back. So the time you would use this is, like I said, once you've pushed them deep into that corner and you've created a space up at the front of the court, you would hit this fast and flat towards that back glass so that it can rebound forward. At a more advanced level, you would still see this flat smash, and you often see players change it up where they might look like they're going to play a Bandeja and then they change and hit a very fast, flat, aggressive smash. The other time you might see it is if they've popped up an easy ball and you hit the ball down and out over that back fence, which is called 4x4 meters, because that's the height of the glass and the fence at the back of the court, but that's another time you might use that smash. So it is used at the pro level, but it's more commonly at a beginner level when you're trying to finish the point, because you have not learnt the Vibora or the topspin kick smash at this stage. The next smash we would teach would be the Vibora. Now, this is essentially an attacking slice smash, and the idea of this is to, at lower levels, finish the point. So this would be where you can hit the ball with side spin and slice into a corner or down the middle, and it stays low off that back glass and you're hitting with high speed, so it's difficult for your opponent to finish the point. At a higher level, this becomes more of a setup shot because the players are so good at defending that you would hit that Vibora into the corner with the hope of getting an easier ball that you might be able to finish on that next shot. When it comes to a technical perspective, you've learned the Bandeja, which is essentially the technique from this high forehand volley. The contact point for the Vibora is again to the side of the body, roughly eye level or forehead height to the side of your body, but the preparation and take back changes and the way you hit through the ball changes. So you go straight into this position, and instead of coming up here for the Bandeja, you would bring the racket face behind your head as if you're going to brush the back of your head, and you keep that elbow nice and high. And now, instead of coming through like a forehand volley, you're actually going to swing around the side of the ball, contacting the ball with side spin and a little bit of slice because it's around the side but under the ball, and that will keep it low at the other end, and that side spin will then make it difficult when it goes into the corner in towards the glass. It's worth saying with all of these overheads, the same with the Bandeja, the same flat smash, Vibora, everything like that, that the purpose is always to keep the net position. So even if you're attacking, you would make sure that if you're further back in the court and you decide to hit that Vibora, that you then recover your net position, because if you want to take advantage of that next ball, you need to be at a good net position here. So the Vibora generally at a lower level is hit closer up the court, because from here you can be more aggressive more consistently. As you improve in level, you'll see pros playing the Vibora from the service line or just behind, because they have the capability to hit that really effectively and consistently, but it really depends on the level from how far back in the court you would hit this. The Vibora is one of the more tricky shots to master, and this is something where the technique does require practice, the footwork, the positioning, it all needs a lot of practice. And so our members that are on the padelschool.com, what they do is they send in their videos of these overheads, and I've seen hundreds of Vibora smashes at this point from different players. And what we do as the coaches, myself and the other coaches, is analyze that Vibora and give you some tips on how you can improve it. And one of the greatest things about this platform is that you can send in as many videos as you want, and usually players make a few mistakes with their technique to begin with. We go back, give them tips, they then send in the next version of their overhead, and we continue to correct, and that's how our online coaching works. And the greatest thing is that you can just take a video at the side of the court while you're playing, send that in, and then it's almost like you're doing homework in the evening. So if you do want to improve the technique, I highly recommend trying the padelschool.com. We have a free trial, so go in there, set up your account, set up your profile, and put in a video of your smash or your Vibora or whatever shot you want to improve, and that way we can help improve your game. The next smash that we will work on will be the Topspin Smash, and there are different types of Topspin Smash. There's the what's called the Rulo, where you brush over the ball and you hit down towards the fence to put your opponent under pressure. Now this can be played defensively or attacking. So if a player is forced back further in the court and they see their opponents coming up, or their partner has communicated that, at an advanced level, you can play that topspin down towards the fence. You can also play this as a change where you set up and you're going to be aggressive with your topspin smash, but your opponents have run up the court to defend it, and you might play aggressive Rulo down towards the fence. You could really play either, and you can see either being played, particularly at a higher level. But the next thing that we would do really is teach that brushing over the ball. If you've come from tennis, you're used to a topspin second serve, and so often it can be easier for those players just to get the feeling and understand the position under the ball when you want to play this kick smash, essentially. The difference in paddle is that you want to contact this ball a little bit higher up, and you use a lot more wrist to flick that ball down. But what I would do is, if you're learning and you've gone through the previous overheads, our next step would really be get the player to just get the feeling of the contact in the right place over their head, and also brushing over the ball. And I would start with the Rulo, which is the one hitting down towards the fence, before I would progress and go for the topspin to kick over the fence. One of the tips that we give to players, and this really doesn't matter your level, whether you're just starting or if you're an intermediate level but you want to hone those overheads, is to practice throwing the ball for yourself on the other side, because from here you can set your body position up the way you want to. And if, for example, I'm practicing the Vibora, I can put that racket behind my head, I get in the position of where I want to hit, and then I can just practice brushing around the ball. And getting that brush is really the key to this shot, because if you practice a whole load of this throwing the ball for yourself, you'll get used to contacting it in the right place, brushing around the ball, and therefore you're also going to see how much pace you hit on the ball to get the right depth. And it's the same with the topspin. You can go in this position and just practice brushing the ball down for the topspin. And if you can get it right in this setting, then it's easier then to progress and have someone feed you the next ball so you can bring it into a more realistic paddle situation. So the next smash we would focus on, which we just mentioned there, would be the topspin, where it bounces 3 meters, or it goes over the fence. And the idea of this is a point finisher at a beginner and intermediate level, because players are not used to running outside, or maybe they don't have the space. And at a World Padel Tour level, you see that they do hit this, but not as often as they could, because when a player runs out of the gate and plays that from outside, they can actually really attack and finish the ball immediately. So the World Padel Tour players have to be quite selective when they're going to kick out, and often what they opt for is to kick the ball off the back glass to bring it back to their own side. But for now, let's focus on the topspin over the fence. So we've just hit the Rulo, which is going to bounce in this area here, that is going to bounce and hit the lower half of the fence if you can, because that makes it more difficult to defend. When it comes to the topspin to bounce over the fence, you're going to aim in this channel here. Ideally, you want to get it to bounce in this area in front of the service line here, hit this part of the separation, or this part of the back glass, in order to get the angle to kick over the fence. If you aim too close to the side glass, it's going to bounce, hit the side glass and come back into the court. Or if the ball is more central, then it's not going to reach that fence, and therefore your opponent can also attack that back. One of the corrections that we've recently done for one of our members is around turning the shoulders. Now, this applies for all of these overheads that we've mentioned up till this stage. So the Bandeja, it's important to turn those shoulders. The Vibora, there's more rotation. So when you come back like this, you almost want to make sure your chest and shoulders are pointing towards the back right-hand corner of the court. And it's the same with the Topspin Smash. You're coming into a really turned position, because this will help you give the angle that you need down towards the fence, or if you're going to kick over the 3 meters. This turning of the shoulders is really important for these last few smashes that we've mentioned. The next smash would be the smash to bring the ball back to your own side. Now, at a pro level, they can hit this from right the way back in the court here, and they brush up that ball so that when it bounces, and it bounces close to that back glass, it bounces, hits the back glass and kicks up high enough to clear their opponent who might be jumping at the net. And that is a really impressive feat, because these players are so athletic, they run forward to the net and they can get some serious air time on their jumps. So you've got to understand, if you're going for this type of shot, generally at a recreational level, intermediate level, you will more often hit this shot when you're closer to the net, and you can hit the ball down, and it's a little bit more with brute force that the ball will bounce down, come off that glass and clear them there. And most likely your opponents are not going to have that same athleticism as the World Padel Tour players, and therefore you've got a little bit of leeway. But this is quite an advanced shot when it comes to finishing the point. The final overhead that we would teach, and I would probably teach this at a similar time to the Rulo and the Topspin Smash, is a more defensive smash, and that is the Gancho. So the Gancho is a ball that is, when the lob goes over your left side, over your left shoulder, you don't have time, or it takes you really out of position to move around and play a bandeja, and therefore you're basically lifting the racket and playing with a relatively straight arm over the left side of your body. And normally, if you're playing on the right hand side, you'll play that down towards the fence or to the side glass, or if you're playing that on the left hand side, it would be down that line. But this is a defensive overhead with the same purpose of regaining that net position and playing a ball that is difficult for your opponents to attack. The Gancho actually is more commonly seen at the World Padel Tour level, where players are using the lob over the left shoulder because they know it's difficult for their opponents to attack, and that's why you're seeing this shot quite regularly at World Padel Tour level. What we see at a more recreational level is players using a high backhand volley for this, and that really would be the last resort. If you can, try and hit this Gancho shot, and if not, then that will have to be that last resort to avoid the ball going past you. But again, after all of these, you want to regain that net position, because that is where you can dominate the point from. Now, if you're learning these overheads, it can be really difficult to try and learn all of them at the same time. It's going to be much easier to learn one, get confident and comfortable with that overhead, and then start bringing in the next one and the next one. And then that way, you've always got a base or a foundation. But these are all technical overheads, so these will need to be taught. If you try and teach yourself on the court or from advice from friends, this is where you can often slip into bad habits. So either go in person and get a coach to teach you these technical steps to the overheads, or send in your videos to us on thepadelschool.com and we will give you technical advice to improve your overhead, and you can go away and then work on those things. But it is really useful to learn this technique as early in your paddle journey as you can to avoid those bad habits. Players generally always have a preference though. For me personally, I prefer, and my preferred of those overheads is the Vibora. I just got really comfortable hitting that from the left-hand side, and even when I play on the right, I generally like hitting that Vibora. Let us know down in the comments which is your most comfortable overhead, and I'm sure it's different for lots of different players. Now, up on this side, I'm going to put a link to thepadelschool.com where you can get a free trial and you can send in your videos so that we can help you improve. And then down here, I'm going to put a video on the difference between the Bandeja and the Vibora, because we went through it quickly in this video, but there are some real major technical differences between the two of them.